You're listening to Agency Alchemy, a podcast from Advertising Week. Join us as we sit down with top agency executives to uncover the secrets behind their success and explore how they're navigating the ever-evolving advertising landscape. From discussions around innovative strategies and emerging trends to effective leadership conversations, each episode offers invaluable insights into what it takes to thrive in today's evolving marketing world. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you're looking for more content like this, check out our roster of podcasts available now on the Advertising Week Podcast Network at www.advertisingweek.com/podcasts. Thanks for listening. My guest today believes many agencies are solving the wrong problem. Evan Gettinger is principal at CBX, a branding agency that helps companies build brands designed to last rather than campaigns designed for the moment. In our conversation, we discuss why branding and marketing are fundamentally different disciplines, how agencies earn decades-long client relationships, what separates meaningful collaborations from gimmicks, why AI won't eliminate originality, and why honesty may be the most underrated competitive advantage an agency can offer. We hope you enjoy this episode. Evan, welcome to the show. I'm so pleased to have you on today.
Thanks for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Tell us what you do at CBX. What is CBX for the uninitiated, and what are we talking about?
So CBX is a branding agency. We have strategy, design, innovation, services. We also have a production team, so we make what we conceive. I'm a principal here at CBX, so I have responsibility along with a few other folks of managing the day-to-day of the agency. I also have responsibilities for building our strategic capabilities, and I have a background in doing that at other agencies.
Excellent. Well, the client-agency relationship has always been fairly complicated, and I think more so now than ever, but it feels like expectations are changing. What do clients genuinely need from an agency in your experience today that maybe they didn't need 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, first of all, I think we complicate the relationship. I don't think relationships are inherently complicated. I think people complicate them. So for example, one thing we believe here at CBX is have an honest relationship with another human being who has their own ambitions and fears and challenges on their side of the call or of the table. So I think you try to uncomplicate some of those relationships. And I think we've had some success because we've had relationships with some clients for like 20 years. And I think that's rare. I do think that their needs have changed over time. I think that when we look back 20 years ago, I think a lot of what different types of marketing, advertising, branding agencies do was primarily outsourced. And that made sense at the time because I think brands showed up in less places and in less dynamic ways. And over time, the way that our cultures evolved, the way that our technologies evolved, the way that we socialize with each other has evolved. And so brands are now showing up in way more places. They're showing up in more dynamic ways. It takes a lot to control that system, that ecosystem. And so a lot of the components of marketing have been brought in-house, even some agencies within, agencies inside clients. So their needs have changed. Their needs are more strategic in nature when they interact with agencies. It's about setting them up for success, or it's about reacting to something that's happening in the marketplace in real time. And I think that's a fundamental shift, and understanding that helps you have a relationship that's less complicated.
You bring up an interesting point that I think about fairly often, but you're actually the first person in my memory anyway, that's brought this up. You were talking about how brands show up in a lot of different places these days. And when I think of that, I think of not only the platforms that we see on mobile devices or computers, but also television, et cetera. Is it really necessary in your mind for all brands to be in all places? And I ask this because I noticed this a lot during the World Cup, where you have a lot of brands showing up in places that I don't necessarily know that you need to be here. Not to pick on anybody, but one of my most recent sort of examples of this is Anthropic advertising Claude on my television, which is
okay, but I already know about this. I don't associate it with that. So it kind of throws me versus, I don't know, like laundry detergent or insurance, for example.
Yeah, so all brands shouldn't be in all places, and this is where I think probably some media companies, sometimes I think they can be very good at, and I've worked with some great ones where they can be very good at recommending a really strong mix, like a channel mix, and where a particular brand should show up and why. And sometimes they're either, that conversation either goes a different way, or for whatever reason, a brand shows up in a place that maybe you as a consumer of that brand feel like it's out of place. Brands also don't always control where they show up. So like they control what they can control, but we as consumers and we as members of society, we bring brands into places that they can't control and they need to react to. So for something like Claude at the World Cup, my mind as like a trained strategist, or even as someone that, helps to manage a branding agency, goes to, well, who's the target audience? Are you the target audience that moment? Maybe you're not. Sometimes people assume they're the target audience, so something feels out of step or out of touch, when in reality they're not. So whoever the target audience is might be looking at that thinking, oh man, I should download that. I should upgrade my account. I should try what they're talking about. So that's one. Are you the target audience? Second is something that some brands try to accomplish in those kinds of forums are like elevating their altitude, right? So there are some brands that exist in, let's say, a technology landscape, right? So Claude is I don't know if they would call, I don't know if Anthropic would call itself exactly a technology company, but let's call them a technology company. That's pretty much there. Does everybody know who they are? Does everybody need to know who they are? Everybody knows Nike. Everybody knows Google. When a brand enters ubiquity, its power dynamic changes, its ability to affect changes, its ability to connect with different cohorts and different audiences, like it changes. The lift for customer acquisition is lower. Now they pay a huge premium to getting to ubiquity over time. But that's why you see, I think, some brands that you wouldn't see in really like high altitude moments, they're reaching for the stratosphere. Whether or not that's an appropriate time in their development as a brand to reach for the stratosphere, I don't know. But you even see in history, look, Apple did it with its 1984 commercial. So sometimes you don't know if you're in the right moment until after the moment. You're like, oh, that was a good decision, right? We timed it right.
That's an interesting point because I mean, I can't remember 1984. I was alive then, but I don't think there was a lot of computer commercials at the time. There's enormous pressure on brands to react faster to culture, trends, competitors, et cetera. But brand building has traditionally required patience and consistency. I think those are the two primary ones. How do you help clients move at the speed of the market without constantly reinventing who they are?
It's a great question. I think this is where sometimes clients and agencies get confused about the difference between branding and marketing. The branding is about building a flexible and enduring system. That system needs to be able to adapt to different moments. It needs to be able to adapt to different mediums. It needs to be able to adapt for different audiences. You can build it that way from the beginning. If you have a good idea of what the past, present, and project into the future, what that future is that brand wants. Marketing is storytelling to captivate an audience and drive interest and traffic and convert sales. And I think that sometimes when a brand looks at their brand building efforts as a marketing activity, you get much less enduring names, logos, identities, systems, photography, typography, illustration. You get something that's built for the moment that's not necessarily built to last. I think any great brand is designed to fit the moment, but it's built to last. And so I see that as being a difference. When we worked with clients, look, I've worked with some clients on projects that are not going to see the light of day for 10 years. It's a far field innovation that is going to take investment and engineering in order to get there. And we're constantly thinking about what are the need states and how are those need states going to persist or evolve based on what the world looks like and how the world's changing. that's how you build a brand to last. You look at a similar set of, I think, inputs. For marketing, it's way more fleeting. I mean, you're not looking at like 10 years from now. You're looking at 10 days from now. You're looking at 10 weeks from now. You need to break through right now. So I think that's where brands get tripped up. They associate too much their brand with their message in the moment.
Collaborations have become a huge part of modern brand strategy, be it unexpected product placements, cultural crossovers, that sort of thing. What separates a collaboration that genuinely expands a brand from one that's essentially just a short-term attention grab?
That's a great question. I think that sometimes brands use collaborations as grounds for innovation, right? Like testing innovation. So instead of developing a product for a new audience, why don't we partner with a brand that already has that audience and collaborate on something and test the waters and see how relevant our brand is with that audience? I think that the ones that are thinking about it in a more valuable way and less sort of gimmicky, I think gimmick becomes the word that comes to mind. When you do it and it looks like a stunt and it feels like a stunt, usually it's your tribe, your core audience that will look at something like that and say, that doesn't feel like us. That's a lot more fleeting. That's something that it's an attention grab. There's something that's not going to last there. But when there's something, when you innovate with a partner, when you collaborate, whether it's a product or service or something else, and it's something that would be just as beneficial to your core audience as a new one, it's got legs. It's an extension of who you are. It's an extension of where you've been. It's an extension of your brand, of your story, of your success so far. The bigger the departure is from that, the more gimmicky that can feel, unless you really double down. I mean, this is an interesting example. It's not a collaboration, but with like Jaguars ads that came out felt to everybody like a gimmick, like it wasn't real. It felt not real. It's since come out that they're completely changing their business model of manufacturing and they're doubling down. And it feels a lot less gimmicky now. The advertising, look, I don't take a position. I thought it was beautiful. The advertising, some people may think felt gimmicky, but the thrust behind it absolutely turned out not to be. And we'll see how that all turns out. But if the more gimmicky it feels, you have to have that kind of thrust behind it for it not to get lost.
One of my favorite collaborations, it's probably also one of the worst, but I can't help but think it's a little bit genius, and that's Hello Kitty with Fender guitars. I'm not sure why I think that's all at once so cool and so terrible, but I've often wondered, what are the dangers of that, over time? Like, let's say you really, really get it wrong. I mean, I suppose in this case, there's, 1,000 of these things. They could put them in a landfill at some point if they don't sell. But, in terms of just brand reputation, it feels like some of that stuff could be potentially very risky.
It could be. I mean, hopefully there are people in rooms that are, they should be diagnosing that risk, like the risk to diluting the brand, the risk to alienating their core, audience, the risk to, I don't know if there's any financial risk in the margin of whatever that launch is, but it's funny you mentioned Fender and Hello Kitty. I play music. I build guitars with my father. The first one I ever built was a Stratocaster. And I've been reading about the beginning of Fender recently. And it started with this guy who wasn't really interested in the commercialization of a brand. He just wanted to build guitars in a workshop and to take music electric. And it was, I think, a collaboration like Fender and Hello Kitty. There's always been an off-centeredness about Fender. There's always been look, it's one of the fathers, mothers of a music revolution. And at the time, there was a major rejection to making music electric, putting music through amplifiers and making it so that anybody can be loud. It really put music in a lot of people's hands. And there's something about like Hello Kitty does that. It opens up Fender to more people. Like it opens up as a father, it opens it up to like my kids in a different way. There's something off-centered about it. Doesn't feel off to me as a Fender lover and loyalist. And I think that when you understand the DNA of a brand so well, you can test it might feel to the marketplace like you're testing the waters, but to people who really feel ingrained and like member of that brand, like a loyalist, it feels like it makes total sense. Like how I think there's something to that. I think it's hard to know the DNA of a brand. That's why we as a branding agency, we really study that. Like we really firmly believe a brand purpose is not something you define. It's something you uncover. There's a reason a business was started. There's a reason a product or service was launched. And if often that reason is just as true today as it was the day that you started it, it just needs to be translated in a more relevant way for right now. And when you understand the DNA of a brand so deeply, I think you have actually a lot more latitude to explore, because it's not about a certain format. It's not about a certain, it's about something that's emotional, and it's the soul of why that business exists in the first place.
And then how do you go about distinguishing between, a genuine behavior or what could simply be a cultural shift that should influence brand strategy and a fashionable trend, for example, that might disappear in 6 months?
We look at needs on different timescales. So we look at what are the needs that someone has, or that a certain cohort has today, and today could be in the past few years, it could be in the past 6 months, to your point. But we always look at that against enduring human needs. There are needs we have as human beings that transcend age, they transcend geography, they transcend socioeconomic position. They're needs that we have as human beings, and they will always be there. And we never build a brand strategy off of anything other than an enduring human need. And it's enriched by maybe the needs of the moment or the needs of the decade. But there's got to be something behind it that's as true today as it will be in 100 years as it was 100 years ago.
As artificial intelligence becomes more embedded in marketing and research and strategy and creative development, do you worry at all that brands and agencies will start arriving at the same insights and the same ideas more quickly? How do you protect originality when everybody has access to those same similar tools?
That's such a good question. And I hope my answer doesn't leave you wanting. I think that people who do rote work will always do rote work. So it doesn't matter the tools, it doesn't matter the what what they're using. So take AI. That's a great example, right? Now we have a powerful tool. Some people who are going to do some superficial strategy and design work or whatever it is. That's maybe just how they do rote work. That's okay. The world's full of different kinds of people. They're gonna prompt it the same way that they would engage themselves in research. A pretty light degree of research. They're gonna take what they see after the first pass or two, and they're gonna accept it. They may not source it from really deeply credible places. They may not look for sort of a large volume or patterns. And they may not have the hard conversations to go deeper to say, but why? But why? But how? But why? And those that are built that way will use those tools in that way, and they'll get to those answers that they would have otherwise gotten to, just would have taken them longer. I think of branders as sort of like anthropologists. If you're an anthropologist, you're going to get there. You're going to get to the heart of whatever that opportunity is, whatever that problem is, whatever that need or insight is. The tools that we have before us allow us to get there faster. But I'm going to ask different questions than you're going to ask. That's true. We're going to have a different starting point if we're good at our jobs. The first 3 questions we ask may be the same. The last 3 should absolutely be different.
In a market defined by shorter cycles, procurement pressure, and a constantly evolving client expectation, what actually sustains a great client agency relationship over the long term? Is it the work, the results, the trust, something else entirely?
I think it's a question that every agency asks themselves, and certainly every agency leader should be. I think for us, what we've noticed, we've been fortunate enough to have clients that have that we've had for, like I said, some for 20 years, some for 15, some for 12, some for 18. We re-earn those businesses every year. These aren't like 5-10 year retainers. Even if they were, clients get out of them, right? You have to earn your seat every day, every week, every year. But I think what keeps them coming back is that part of it's definitely the results. What you do has to achieve what you set out to, or better than what you set out to. And I think too often we, as an industry, can be navel gazing. We can bring self-indulgence into the equation, which can complicate the relationship, because now the agency has its own ambitions for the work that aren't in line with the client's ambitions for the work. The client really wants to achieve a certain objective, either sales lift or audience penetration or household penetration, or and the results and the continued proof that we get the results help our clients know that, like, we're in it for them. We're in it for those results. It's nice to win awards. It's nice to do all those things. It's nice to recruit talent because we have those things, but it's not creative unless it sells. We have a plaque in our office that says that. We all believe it. So part of it's the results. The other part, I think, is honesty. I think that for whatever reason, agency and client relationships, I think agencies feel a lot of pressure to always have the best answer, always have the right answer, always be slick, always be, always show up, incredibly polished, always. And I don't think that's what clients are always looking for. They obviously want intelligence. They obviously want organization and sophistication. They need honesty. In a world that is where they're having to react very quickly to market conditions, where they, like, the rule books are out the window on marketing, where you do something, you can expect this result. That's not true anymore. We've had brands completely challenge the traditional rules of marketing. So they're in a world where they're feeling their way in the dark. They need honesty. What are you capable of? What will this achieve? What do you think is the right thing to do? And I think that helps. I think procurement's looking for that, less ego. And I think the last thing is you can never take anything for granted. So it doesn't matter what the brief is that you get. What does the client need? Always give them what they ask for, and always give them what you think they need, and do it with respect. And they will always respect you for it. They may not always be able to fund it. They may not always agree with it, but they will always respect you for it, for taking on their challenge as your own in a respectful way. I think, again, where agencies complicated is they ignore common sense and they just do what they think is right, not what the clients ask for. I think you always have to do both. And I think that it helps human beings have somebody to compare against. Oh, this is what I briefed you on. This is what I asked you for. Thanks for showing me that. Thanks also for showing me this other thing that you think is actually more in line with my needs. It's more likely to help me achieve my objectives. Now that I see them both side by side, I agree with you. Or now that I see them side by side, that's where we need to get to, but we're not there today. And, like, let's move forward with what I asked for, but thank you. I'm going to use this internally to start conversation. So I think it's a combination of results, honesty, and pushing and challenging clients in very respectful ways.
Fantastic answer. Evan, this has been fantastic. If one wanted to find out more about yourself or CBX, where would you send them?
CBX.com.
Well, what could be easier than that? Thanks so much for taking part in the show today.
Thank you, Richard. Pleasure to be on. Appreciate it.